Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Mr. Fix-It channel. Today I've got a early 70s CB750 in the shop. It's been choppered out and my job here is to get this thing running. Stay tuned.
I was sitting out there in the shed one evening, not doing too much of nothing, just kind of staring at the wall.
Now I say early 70s because the only thing I have to go on here is the engine. There's no other reference points because this is not the factory frame. This is completely custom. So we're just going to say 69, 75, somewhere in there. It's got some pretty cool features. We got little spikes everywhere. We got some stainless braided oil lines. We got a big old fat kicker. Some cooling fins on the adjuster caps here. What I'm going to do here is I gotta pull the carbs. I have carb kits for this, although I don't know if they're the correct carb kits because I don't know if these are the factory carburetors or not, since I don't know what year this bike is and everything's so customized. But I need to get the carbs off. I need to open up the carburetor kit boxes and see if everything's the same there. There's a bit of wiring to do as I don't have a key for it, but I do have a new ignition with a key in it. Yeah, let's try to get this thing running. I believe there is some intake boots in a box somewhere to replace these with. Hopefully they're the right ones. Don't know anything about this bike. It was just dropped off here and the guy said, can you make it run? So here we are. No matter how bad you want to, or how bad you want it to work, electrical tape is not a carburetor seal. Use the electrical tape on electrical stuff, not on your intake or your bike. Let's see, this tape, I'm gonna have to take that off after I get the carbs off. Let's see what we got to do here. We got a copper wire carburetor bracket, and we got to undo the cable. We got to undo all these clamps, the fuel lines. I think there's gas in it. Yeah, there's some gas in it. So get the gas turned off. Grab a screwdriver. Get the clamps off. I don't know. I think this houses the wiring. Well, some of the wiring. And yeah, so these are really old carburetors. You don't see that every day. So whenever you're getting an engine running, I mean, every engine wants the same things. They all want fuel. They need spark to happen at the correct time. And they need compression. And they need camshaft timing. So, I mean, it's just the basics. You just got to give it what it wants. And it's not electrical tape. So, I mean, the hose clamps are electrical taped up too. I can't even get to those. So, this is going to be quite fiddly to get these off of here. So you need to cut that wire there. Yep. Let those loose. You get the throttle cable off of there, and then the fuel line. Alright, so these clear fuel lines, they're cool and all, but they get rock hard and they're almost impossible to take apart once they've been on a while. So I'm going to try to get these off without breaking them. Likely going to come apart. Okay, that one's going to come loose. Good. Ah, got it. Alright. They're still attached to the carburetors, but at least it's off of the fuel tank. Let's see, let's get it slid out of these boots. Okay. That box underneath might be in my way. I don't know if I can get it out. Maybe I can do it the other way. Let me try going out the other way. Yeah, here we go. Now I can get to the throttle cable, get that undone. I need a 10mm wrench. So loosen up the nuts here. That out. Okay. Now I can take this whole mess over to the bench, and hopefully the carb kits that came with this bike are the correct ones. So these velocity stacks are pretty cool, although they do nothing to filter air. So you wouldn't want to ride this when it's dusty or anything, but let me just open up the bottom of one of these carburetors and see if the kit that we have is right. Okay, not terribly bad in there. It looks to be right. Gasket looks right. Don't know if that needle's right until I get the slide out of it, but the jets look to be right. Yeah, I think these are the right kits, so that's a good sign. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the velocity stacks, get them out of the way, and after that I need to get this whole assembly apart, because I would like to clean these in the ultrasonic cleaner. I don't know if I'll be taking, I don't think they really need to be completely, I don't think I need to take the bank apart, but maybe I can just submerge two at a time like that, and I'll get this as clean as I can get it. One thing I did notice is that the choke flaps are not synced. Let me get these off. So these stacks have little Allen grub screws in them holding them on. So are they standard or metric? They are metric. So we get these loosened up. Looks like there's two on each. Oh, I am going to have to separate them. Look, that's going to leak. That whole carburetor's loose. Alright, so looks like I'm going to be completely disassembling this carburetor bank, because there's some O-rings in here that I got to replace, which are not in the kit. So I'm going to have to try to find some O-rings. And can I get this line off without destroying it? Rubber lines are definitely the way better choice. These can be stuck on so bad that I could actually break the carburetors trying to remove these lines. Okay, got that one. Look, that carburetor's loose too. Just trying to wedge that screwdriver in there. Come off. Get off of there. Come on. Ah, got it. Okay. So I can only imagine that this bike was very hard to get started, because if you look at the choke flaps, this one closes and none of the other ones do. And you sync those by turning these turnbuckles up here on the choke rod. So those all have to be synced. I'm sure the throttles, all the slides need to be synced together as well, because I doubt that was done. And a couple of these carburetors are loose. The screws are loose, so they're moving around. You sync these by these screws on top. So you loosen that nut and you turn that screw in and out. The vacuum port is right there on all the carburetors. So there, and then opposite side on this side, that's your vacuum port right there. So that's where you hook up your synchro gauge to. Now I'm going to break these carburetors down, because I got to get in here and replace the O-rings. So like that fuel inlet right there has no O-rings in it. That's loose. That's going to be a huge leak. So I got to take these apart. So while I got them apart, I might as well ultrasonic clean them separately. Get the rest of this torn boot off of here. And that's another thing I got to check. I need to check to see if the intake boots that he brought are correct too. So there's the idle stop. It's definitely old school setup here. You don't see this very often. So I think the first CB750 was in 1969. Would be the earliest one. These are probably close to that. I would say these are very early 70s carburetors. Okay, that looks like that gasket there. Okay, good. We got the right kit. Excellent. It's possible I won't have to mess with this if I can get these screws out. These might just drop out of the slides. So I'm going to try that first. So let me get my impact driver in the appropriate size driver, which would be that one. These screws aren't even tight. They're only hand tight. So no need for the impact driver, except for maybe that one. Yeah, it's loose too. So it's almost like someone disassembled this carburetor bank and just kind of loosely put it back together. That's scary. I really dig mechanical carburetors over the vacuum CV carburetors for performance. I think these perform way better. The CV carbs are probably more fuel efficient, but you can't beat the performance of a mechanical carburetor like this. The throttle response is just crisp and now. I should say, I guess. Now and these also accept pod filters or, you know, modified air boxes so much better than the CV carburetor. Some CV carburetors, you can't even tune them unless you got the factory air box. The manufacturer does so much tuning and development and research to make sure that they match the air box volume perfectly to the carburetors that they're using. And it's if you go in there screwing with that, then you know it's never going to run right. And that's another reason why I really like mechanical carburetors. Okay, let's see here. Can I separate these? Oh, I got a spring here. Let me grab something and get that spring off. So I have not had the opportunity to work on a set of carburetors like this. So this is all new to me. Like I said, I'm hoping that I don't have to take the throttle shaft apart. I can just separate these from the slides like this, but that may not be possible. Well, maybe. There's one. Oh, I gotta undo all the choke linkages. It looks like they're held in with a split pin. So each one of these has got to be undone. Now these are tiny little split pins. Let me grab a different tool. Okay, there's the washer. Where'd the pin go? There it is. Okay. Itty bitty tiny little split pin. Now, can I get this carburetor out? Yes. Aha! All it needed was to be wiggled in the right direction here. I'm gonna get all the forks off of the slides. There we go. Now we can leave all that intact. Cool how that works, isn't it? So, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Stop using silicone on your carburetors. It's never going to work. It never did work. It's not a fix. It just gets into everything and makes a mess. See, it's not even stuck on there. It just falls apart when you use RTV silicone anywhere near gasoline. I'm sure they make special gasoline safe RTVs that I don't know about, but your regular run-of-the-mill RTV that you get off the shelf at the parts store, don't use it on your carburetors. So these are the O-rings that I'm going after, and I don't have these, so I'm going to have to source these from somewhere to dig through my stuff, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to have 8 of the same O-ring of this size. So we'll have to deal with that here in a minute. But here's one carburetor out of the bank. It's nice to see the composite floats. Those usually don't leak or go bad. Brass floats, they tend to leak and go bad. You want to look at the needle, make sure it's not worn out on the tip. It should be a nice cone. There's a little bit of wear, but it's still usable. That's a 105 main jet. Now I don't know if this bike was jetted, because it does have wide open headers and wide open intake. So I'm not sure. 105 seems to be a little small for a 750. So we may have to do some jetting adjustments to this bike. I don't know what came in the kit. Let's open the kit up. They stamp these numbers so small on these. Okay, this is also a 105. So that's probably the factory jets. So we're definitely going to have to jet this thing up some, make it run right. So there's one carburetor disassembled and ready to be cleaned and reassembled. Now off camera I'm going to go ahead and get the other 3 carburetors to this point, and then we'll throw them in the bath. Now if you want to see how to rebuild these carburetors in greater detail, click the link right here. Alright, I got all 4 carburetors neatly nestled into this basket. Got that up to temp. Go ahead and dunk these in, and I'm going to give these a good long soak, probably for a half an hour. Let's do 20 minutes. That should be long enough. So turn this noisy thing on, and while this thing's running, I can't record because it absolutely destroys the audio, and you guys don't want to listen to that thing. So when that's done, we'll come back. I got all these other parts that need to be cleaned up. The float bowls look really well, but they're also going to go through the ultrasonic cleaner. So all these parts need to get cleaned, and they'll all go in the ultrasonic cleaner. But to save time, I'll do the other 3 off camera. So let me get the ultrasonic cleaning done, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I took a little time and I drove up to the nearest Harbor Freight, and they have a really good assortment sets of O-rings. So they got a metric set and an imperial set. And also in these two cases, get this open here. This is a metric set and an imperial set, and these are very well priced in my opinion, because if you go to the hardware store and they have an O-ring that you need, it's more than likely going to be, you know, 35 cents, 50, 75 cents. So I got almost 1,000 O-rings here for about 35 bucks. So not a bad deal. And that should seal up in between these carbs, and hopefully I won't have to make a parts store run every time I need a damn O-ring. So remember how I said I was going to drill these jets out to jet it up a little bit? Well, these jets are marked 105. This is a 115 drill bit and fits right in there. So somebody has already drilled these jets out to 115. Now I checked the pilot jets. They're marked 40 and they're still 40. I noticed that the slide needles are set on the richest condition. So the clip is all the way down on the needle. So somebody's already went through the trouble of jetting this bike. I actually was going to drill them out to a 115. So that being said, this bike's already been jetted. So I can only assume that whoever jetted this last time, you know, went through all the headache of figuring out what size to drill these out, or so at least it's close to run, and just go back to the way that it is right now. The only problem with that is I've never heard this bike run. See, the 115 doesn't fit. The 105 fits perfect in the 105 jet. I need to make a decision to whether I'm just going to reinstall the already drilled out jets and see how it runs. And in that way, if it's too rich, then I have these jets to fall back on. And I think that's probably the best. I think that's the best thing I can do, is just go ahead and install the old jets. Since everything's clean, I can go from there. So let me just do that. I'm going to install the old jets, make sure I start from where it was at before, and we'll see. I could go pull a spark plug and see, but it's hard to tell because it was, you know, the intakes are all leaking and stuff, so the spark plugs probably aren't going to tell me a whole lot. Yeah, let me just reassemble everything that it had. We'll put the new gaskets in. You see if the needles are the same. All right, so this needle says this is a 272C. New needle is a D54, so they are not the same. They're not shaped the same either. They're the same length. The tips are a little different. This one's a little narrower. I'd have to do some research to see which one's the richer jet needle. Let me reinstall all the original stuff. I think that's going to be the safest bet. All right, all the chokes are synced. They all close together. I need to install this spring. There's the return spring in place. Now I'll need to synchronize the slides together. Now the carburetors are set up initially, and the rest of the adjustments will have to be done on the bike. Alright, so I opened up this box up underneath here. I need to swap out this ignition switch, and just kind of going through the wiring here, and I need to figure out what's all hooked up here. We got a starter solenoid, we got the rectifier. Looks like this main red wire here is coming off the battery. I'm pretty sure this bike has electric start. There's a push button right there, but I don't think this little red wire is going to be enough to carry the current of the starter, so that may need replaced. But first thing here is get the bike turned on, because I don't have a key for this switch. So that's kind of janky. But I got the other switch over on the bench. Just go have a look at it, see what functions it has, and see if if we have to modify it, what we got to do to hook it up to this bike. So pretty much the only thing on this bike is going to be a brake light, tail light, and a headlight. There's no turn signals, there's no horn, there's none of that stuff. So we just need to figure out, let's see, tail light circuit, headlight circuit's all one circuit, and then the brake light circuit, and then the start circuit. That's all we got to worry about, because the charge circuit I shouldn't have to mess with. And the ignition circuit. So let's see what we got on this other switch. Alright, so first things first, let's see what wires do what on this switch. I'm going to set my meter to the beep function. So we got it on ohms, so when I touch the leads, it beeps. And there is 3 positions. So there's off, that position, and that position. There's no crank on here, no spring loaded momentary, so it's just 3 positions, off, on, and on. So let's turn it to the first position, and we'll probe these wires and see which ones make connection here. Nothing there, nothing there. Okay, we got something there. So I'm going to move over here. There's connection there, nothing there, nothing there. So in the first position, these 2 are in contact, and these 2 are in contact, but they're not in contact with each other. So do the next position. What we got here? Nothing there. Nothing, oh, we got contact there, and nothing there. So we'll move over here. Nothing there, nothing there. So in the second position, we only have these 2 in contact. So this switch is probably meant to be like ignition on, and then maybe a park where just the brake light is on and no ignition. Sorry about the lighting underneath here, it's terrible. But so I pulled some of these wires apart. We only got a few wires. So what I figured out is we got a wire for the tail light. We got a wire for the headlight here, and the regulator rectifier power here, and we got a black wire coming off the regulator rectifier, which I'm not sure. A lot of times the green is the ground on Japanese bikes. So we got a green here. Black is usually power. This was hooked to the ignition switch. So this probably powers up the regulator rectifier. We have this red wire here, which is going down to the battery. This wire over here goes to the start button, but I don't see the ignition wire. Which wire powers the coils? I don't see that. I gotta find the wire that powers the ignition. So we got the 3 yellow wires. It should be coming from the stator, and there's a white wire. Looks like that a black one, another black wire going to the regulator rectifier. Looks like this used to be a green wire. So I don't have a wiring diagram for a Honda Chopper, so I'm gonna have to figure this out step by step here. I mean, basically all the wires are here that we need, except for I just need to figure out which one goes to the ignition. Are they just powering the ignition off of the regulator rectifier? Is that how they're doing it? They're just, when they turn the key on, the regulator rectifier gets powered up and that powers the ignition? I'm not sure. I need to get the points cover off and start testing for power there, and what wire needs to be connected to get power to the points. So let me get that off of there. This is the main battery wire. These red and black wire here and here, I'll go to the charging system. Let me touch all 3 of these together here and see if we got power at the points. We do not. No power at the points. So wait a minute, there's another red wire here. What's this one going to? Is that powering the points? Wait, that's going, no, that one's going to the battery. Hold on, I gotta get this off the switch. You gotta be careful of that wire. We don't want it to touch ground anywhere. Throw sparks. Okay, let me go grab an alligator clip from my meter lead. Clip this on there, so that way we got 2 hands to work with this up here. So this is our headlight and brake light. This wire here is going to the starter solenoid. Touch all 4 of these wires together, what happens? Power to the points? No. Do not. No power to the points. So, guy told me he did hear this bike run, but I'm not seeing how they had it wired to where the ignition was hot. There is nothing there. So there's the wires coming out of the points right here along the frame there, straight up there to the points. Let's see, did they use a turn signal for a kill switch maybe? Possible, it's something crazy I would do. So let's hold all these wires together again and try turning the turn signal. Nothing there, so those are grounded to the box. So we don't have ignition. Where is the ignition wire? Alright, so I'm going to have to do some digging and figure out which wire needs to go to power the coils. So we got a blue and a yellow. Blue and yellow. Blue and yellow. Those are going to our triggers. The blue and yellow are our negative side of the coils, and this black, this big black wire here. Is that it? I thought that was a headlight. So do they have the headlight and the ignition coils on the same circuit to power the headlight on? That's it. They got the ignition coils tied in with the headlight. We got a couple options here. We can do the switch where it's just on, everything on, and then 2 offs either way, or we can do what a lot of bikes do, and there's a park where ignition is off and it's just the tail light that's on. I don't find that feature handy at all. I mean, I guess if you're stuck on the side of the road somewhere, you want to be visible, but that's really how the switch is wired to do it. The reason I don't like that is because you might think you turn the bike off, but the brake light's still on and it runs your battery dead. But I think that's how we'll do it. We'll do it like how most bikes are wired, with a switch like that. So we'll have everything on and turn it to the other way, and it'll be just the brake light on. Can we wire it like that? I don't even know if we can wire it like that because of what we got to work with here. Yeah, we could. I think we could do it. We just have to make a jumper for the brake light. Okay, so got all this figured out. So theoretically, if I attach these two, should get spark. There's spark. Alright, so that coil works. Yep, there's spark. So both coils work. Alright, let's get that other switch ready to go. I'm probably going to put in a new connector instead of using these ring terminals and stuff. You can easily plug and unplug this, and we'll get new connectors put on here and we'll get that switch wired up. And now that we got the wiring figured out, I can go ahead and put the new intake boots, new intake boots on this, and get the carburetors back on, and we'll see if it'll fire up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, because I do not have the other end of this connector, just going to go like that, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll pull that off of there and strip all these back. Okay, nothing between the red and black wire with it off, but if I turn it one position, okay, so that's that, and then the brown and brown white should be the other side of the switch, or wait, no, right, okay, so I confused myself there. So all 4 of these are making contact in the first position, right? Why is it not now? See, this is the thing about electrical stuff. You go away for a second and you come back and you're like, what did I just do? So we can run the ignition and headlight through here, and we can run the tail light and brake light through here, and as soon as you turn on the next switch, it's going to send power from this red wire to this brown wire, and that'll be our park feature. So we can run that's how we'll do it. So we need a 4-pin connector right here, both sides of it, and we need 4 of the female pins, 4 of the male pins. Can you still say that on the internet? Male and female? Am I going to get yelled at by some blue-haired hippie? Okay, so there's 4 male pins, 4 female pins, and then we need the seals. We need 8 of these, and we just start crimping away here. So obviously you want to make sure you put all male pins on one side and all female pins on the other side of the connector. You just got to determine which end of this you want on the plug. I think I'm going to put this in. That's the male side on the plug. So we'll put male pins on. And how I like to do this is I'll put the rubber on, and then I'll put the pin in the crimpers. Sometimes you got to bend these tangs in, get them in the crimpers, and I'll put that on the first notch, the first click, and it'll just kind of hold there. Then I can jam the wire in there and crimp her home. And it makes a nice crimp, and then if the wire's a little too small for that pin, I'll go ahead and go down the sizes here and shrink that down tight. And then give it a good tug and make sure it ain't gonna come off, and that makes a really nice crimp. And I'll go ahead and do that to all of these, and we'll get this thing connected to the bike. Now on the bike side, I can't do it on the bench, so I gotta go up underneath the bike there and do the other side of this connector. But I won't make you watch any of that. I'll go ahead and finish this up and we'll continue. So please bear with any rain noise you hear in the background. So what I'm doing here is, I don't believe that this skinny little red wire here is going to be really enough to carry the current of the starter. So I'm going to swap it out with this wire here. I found a couple breakers in here. I'm going to utilize these breakers because there's no fuses on this bike, and it'd be a shame for a wire to short out and, you know, burn the bike down. So I'm going to wire up everything to these breakers, run that new battery wire, and then make a pigtail for the switch. So let's get this out of here. Oh, I don't think I can pull that through there. Maybe that's why they used the skinny wire, because they couldn't get another wire in there. Alright, I'm going to have to cut the end of this off to get it out. Now I can't get it back through the hole. Oh, okay. Well, let's take this box loose and let's do a lot more work than we intended. So this is way too long. Do I have a shorter one? Let me see if I got a shorter wire. This wire is a little overkill. I'm gonna have to make a wire. Well, I have this wire here, but I'm out of the correct size ring terminal, so yet again, I'm gonna have to run to town, go get some parts for this bike. So let me do that. Unfortunately, it's raining, so I can't just hop on my bike and go, so I'll have to take the truck. So I'll be right back. Alright, I got the more appropriately sized battery cable coming in here. I'm gonna go to one leg of the starter solenoid there, and I'm going to take another wire. I'm going to come off of that. I'm going to go to right there on the breaker, and then I can branch power off. Since these two are connected, that'll energize both of them, so I can take power off from here on the breakers. So I got to shorten this wire and put a new end on it. We'll get that connected from there to there. I got to put an end on this, and then that'll get grounded back down. Now the headlight coil wire, it was just slipped under this box where they made this cutout, and that's got a sharp, rough edge. That's going to short out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lengthen this wire, and I'm going to run it up through this hole that's got this grommet in it, so everything will come up through the bottom. And the tail light wire, this one should reach up underneath there. Let's see if that'll fit. There's that wire in there, and then that's going to go over to one of these breakers, so like right there. So that'll work. So I just need to lengthen this wire and get it connected to the other breaker, get that end on and shorten that other wire, and then I can make a pigtail that goes to the key switch. Instead of having all those wires going to the switch, I can do it this way. Alright, so I'm going to butt connect these two wires, and the way I like to do that is I will spread these out, kind of fan them out as even as possible on both wires. And I would join them like holding hands, this, and then twist together. Try to get it as tight as I can. And then I'll bring in my soldering iron. Not quite hot enough yet. You gotta have a good hot soldering iron for this. have to let my soldering iron heat up a little more. So you need to get your soldering iron as hot as possible, and I've got my soldering iron hooked up through an extension cord, and that's not helping things. But you got to get some solder in between there, and that'll help transfer the heat into the wire, and once it starts melting on top, it should wick its way into the wire. And that is actually a NASA approved way of connecting two wires. And then don't forget the heat shrink. Get that on there. And now I've lengthened this wire, so I can run this up through here now. That's if I can find a gap in it. Get in there, come on, get it. Oh, yeah, there it is, got it. Alright, so since the only circuits in this thing are the ignition, the headlight, and the tail light, I think I'm going to do away with one of these two breakers, just to simplify things in here. So we'll get rid of this loose one. The other one's riveted down to the box, nice and solid, so we'll get this one out of here. And we'll essentially have just one fuse for the whole bike, and we'll just do it this way. So I need to come, let me figure this out. We'll get everything routed and we'll start hooking stuff up, because this is taking incredibly too long. Alright, so the new switch will not fit into the hole. So I got my step bit and I am going to drill this out. Hopefully this goes okay. Alright. Pretty tough stainless steel here. Might have to go get my better drill. I think I gotta go one more step. Nope, I just gotta finish that one. Stainless is some tough stuff, man. Tough. I got metal shavings everywhere and a burr on the back I gotta get rid of, but at least that's drilled out and I can fit that switch in there. Okay, that's what we want right there. Okay, that's installed. Okay, so everything is wired in through the breaker. I got one connection here to make. Where's the other end? Alright, so we got to plug these two together. And then what I need to do is go over here and touch the battery wire to the battery and see if we let the smoke out of anything. Okay, the headlight's coming on. Tail light's on. What happens if I turn the key off? Well, the key isn't even in it, so that's not a good sign. Okay, after much screwing around, I think I have this to where when the key is off, everything is off. You turn the key on, we got the headlight, we got the tail light, we have spark. Ow, that's hot. We should have a starter button. Alright, now turn the key to the other position. We should have no headlight, no start button, no ignition, and only the tail light. Okay. Now in the off position, everything should be off. No tail light, no start, no headlight. Alright, got that figured out. And this looks like a mess in here because, well, it is. So I gotta tuck all this back in. Gotta put that switch back through the box over there. Figure out the best way to tuck all this in. Something like that. Now the rectifier had this piece of inner tube wrapped around it, I guess, for vibration protection. I'm not sure. This thing should be out in the air so it can cool. I don't even know if the charging system works, so probably won't be buttoning this box up just yet. I want to get the bike started up and at least see if the charging system's going to work, and then yeah, we'll go from there. But I'll get that key mounted in properly, and then I'll go get the carbs. We'll take these junk old boots off, get the carbs on, and we'll see if the bike will fire up. I've been waiting for this. Yeah, I went ahead and put the cover back on that box just because you cannot access it with the carburetors in place. So hopefully the charging system works. I won't have to pull the carb. But anyway, I'm gonna get the carbs put on and we'll crank this thing up. I did install the boots, the intake boots that came with the bike, because the ones that were on it were in bad shape. See, I need my 10mm wrench. Gotta get the throttle cable tightened down. Okay, hopefully these old rock hard boots will play nicely and I'll get this carburetor put in. Yeah. Hit. Come on. I'm going to put a wheel chock in front of the wheel because I keep pushing the bike away from me. There we go. Get in there. Come on. Get in there. Hit. Hit. Oh. Phew. Alright. I'll have to put some lube on it. Said lube. So just a little bit of this. And the boots should help quite a bit. Making sure the clamps are all loose will help too. Just throw that down there. Okay, try again here. Getting these all lined up too. These old CBs are kind of weird in how the intakes kind of bend and stuff. Getting them all lined up is key. Get in there. Come on. Oh my God, they don't want to go in. I may have to heat those boots up to get those carbs in. We'll keep trying here though, real quick. Okay, that was a huge pain in the you know what. Wow, that took a lot of force to get those in place. But I got them on, got all the clamps tight. I had to take the stacks off so that I could, you know, push like this. But I got them on there. I don't know what's in the tank. I hear some liquid in there. I haven't opened that up yet, but I want to check the oil and check the tank. So let's do that. Okay. Smells like fresh gas. Oh. Well, there's no oil in it. This, kids, is why we check the oil before we start things. This is points ignition, so more than likely I'm going to have to clean the points, but we'll look for spark here. Yeah, there's spark now. Alright, give me life. Well, that's not what I meant when I said give me life. Okay, well, let me charge the battery up and then we'll continue. Alright, this is charging for a little bit. I'm going to leave the battery charger hooked up to it while I crank. So hopefully it don't run dead again. So let me try this again. Sounds like only 2 are lighting off. Alright, let me clean those points. That's probably what the problem is. The points are probably dirty. I don't know if the timing's right or anything on these. Yeah, they're pretty dirty. I mean, It should be set up right unless somebody was in here messing around. Okay, let's try that, see what happens. Alright, give it to me. Huh. Nothing. Okay, well, we'll check for spark again. Alright, I did some more cleaning on the points. I used my actual points file this time. Let's try again. Well, I don't know. When I open the points down there with my screwdriver, I get spark, but I'm not getting spark when I'm cranking. Possible it's because the battery's weak. Heard it puff off a couple of times. It could be the wrong coils firing the wrong cylinders, because the straight boot should go in the center two cylinders, and the 90 I believe is supposed to go to the outside. So it's possible the coils are swapped back and forth. Might have to get a timing light out and put a timing light on and see what's going on. Alright, if the timing light flashes, then we got spark. I'm going to look in here at the rotor and see if it's firing the 1-4 at the right time here. It's pretty intermittent. The timing's right, or I mean the firing order's right. So I guess I'm just going to have to let this battery charge up. That might be the issue. I haven't pulled the spark plugs yet out either. Something like that. So I might need to pull the plugs. They could be fouled. Who knows what's going on with those. I'm getting a little pops and puffs out of it. But I'm not getting the vroom. Or, well, in the case of these wide open headers, the ah! So I guess I'm going to take a break, let the battery charge up for a few hours, and go from there. Alright, one last, before I take a break, let this battery charge, we do have, so let me try this. Nope. Try some more fuel. It's possible the coils are burnt out too. We're on. Oh. One little puff out of it. It's trying to run. It's trying. Alright, so it's been a couple hours. I went ahead and I swapped the spark plug boots so they're in the proper orientation now. I hooked up the fuel line to the tank and turned the gas on. No carburetor leaks so far. Let's just hit full choke, crank it, see what happens. got the synchronizer gauges hooked up, and I'm just letting the engine come up to temperature. Let's look and see how good I did on the bench sync. So that was a little low. So pretty good. All I gotta do is give this one a little less throttle. So I'll turn that one out until that gauge reads the same as the rest of them. It's looking pretty good right there. That's all you gotta do to sink these in. You just turn the big 17mm nut and dial them in. And then once you get them all set, then you hold this and lock that down. But I'm gonna let it warm up, and once it's up to temp, I'll get a better idea of what's going on here, and I'll dial it in. I'm gonna hold the big one still and tighten the little one. You gotta get real tight. And then that's how you synchronize the carburetors. So getting these screws in back here is pretty tight to get in with your fingers. I have this tool called a screw starter. It's a spring-loaded deal. It's for flathead screws. You stick your slot on the end of this, and then it's spring-loaded, it ratchets it, and then it holds your screw for you. And that way you can insert the screw, and when you get it tight, it unlocks and lets go of it. The handiest tool ever. Smoking a little bit out of the left side, but it's running just a little bit lean on the pilot circuit. Really need to take it down the road, but it's been raining on and off today. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. It's also spewing some oil out of the pipes. I see little spatters. There's a couple little drips. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. So there's that little drip of oil right there. Same thing out the other side. So it looks like it's got some, maybe needs some rings or something done to it. But it's running, and that was what my job was to do, was to get this thing running, and it's running now. Alright, so about the oil coming out the exhaust issue. Turns out I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to drain a little bit of the oil out of the oil tank. You know, I didn't know. This thing sat, and when I looked in the oil tank, it was bone dry. Turns out all the oil was actually down in the engine, and I think I overfilled it. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this oil out, and that should solve the problem. Alright guys, that's all I got for you in this video. Bike's running. That's what we're here to do. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and don't be afraid to fix it. Thanks for watching.